I know that, it's just terribly frustrating.
It is frustrating. How are you doing, Barry?
Pretty good, how about you?
You know, I can't complain. Can't figure out my stupid iPad.
Oh, that's not good.
It won't let me get rid of messages. Like, I can open the email, but it won't let me trash them. Like all the junk email that I had. Now,
Won't
it
like permanently delete.
won't let me even delete them like off of my inbox
Have you closed out your iPad recently?
every day.
Every day?
Or you literally shut it
Well, I guess no, that's true. I probably did not.
Like actually power down? Try
No.
that.
Yeah.
The problem with that is I have to remember my password.
Oh.
And that could be a problem.
That could be a problem. That'd be a bigger problem, right?
I could do that at home where I have my password written down. If I do it right now, it means I'm not
Then
going to
you-
have my laptop for the baby.
Maybe
I
at
know.
home. Maybe at home. Try it.
I'll try
I
that at
don't
home.
know.
Okay, I'll try powering it down. I'll give that a shot.
Odd.
Electronics and me tend to have an odd relationship. Technology is my friend only when it's working and it's easy.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh,
Do not disturb on this one.
and sometimes it just gets in the way.
Plus, I've had cataract surgery and I didn't have time to go get my new prescription. And I just turned it in. It's gonna be a while, so I fought that all through the conference. I'm learning computer March 12th, 2020, Lacey City Council meeting. And if you're able, please stand and join us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
So before I begin, we have two excused council members, the mayor, Andy Ryder, and council member, all of a sudden, Ed Kunkel. I couldn't think of his first name. How silly. So with that, we have an amended agenda. We're going to meet after the council business meeting to have a work session, and it's going to be on the Department of Commerce grant, and then also an update on COVID-19, what's happening with that. So, and you're welcome to stay for that. So with that, may I have
Move to approve the amended agenda and consent agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any polls, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. What's next up is a resolution for, and the 2019 Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan update. And Mary Ann Hardy, is she here to prove it, or?
She's here. Do you want me to come up there?
Oh, did I miss a public comment? I did, I'm so sorry. I just whipped by it. So before that, we have two public comments. What's pointing?
Oh, they can't hear you in the mic. If you can speak into the mic.
Oh,
That's
okay.
on.
Okay, it's on. So first up is Michelle Andrews. Please repeat your name, and then you have 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, excuse me.
All right, so good evening, Deputy Mayor Pratt and council members. My name is Michelle Andrews. I live in Northeast Olympia. I've been a Thurston County resident all my life, and I've also volunteered for Joint Animal Services for many years. And recently I've been a volunteer for Bailing Out Benji. They are raising awareness about puppy mills and the pet stores that sell those puppies. So I'm here today to ask you to support a humane pet store ordinance. Recently, I emailed most of you with information about the ordinance that City of Olympia recently passed. And myself and other volunteers attended the JazzCom meeting, and it seemed like they supported it. And so what prompted City of Olympia's ordinance is a puppy pet store called Puppy World that opened up by Capitol Mall. And so now that the city has passed the ordinance, the owners might be looking for another location. So please consider passing an ordinance as soon as possible. There's proof that Puppy World and their sister city, Puppyland, receive puppies from a commercial breeder in Iowa. So that's where they're getting their puppies from, Iowa. And from Iowa, the puppy broker gets them from puppy mills in the Midwest. So puppy mills, I can tell you a lot about puppy mills, or you can Google them. I only have 3 minutes, so not a lot of time. But basically, they are commercial breeding operations for dogs and cats. They're very cruel. The animals are kept in cages their whole life. Dr. Parsley on City of Olympia Council, she said that the claws will grow into the paw pads of the dogs that are kept for breeding purposes only. They're bred as often and as long and as early as possible. They start breeding them at 6 months old. So again, I could tell you a lot more, but got to move on. And just because a pet store or a puppy mill might say that they're USDA licensed, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that the cage needs to be 6 inches bigger than the dog itself. And they can have 12 dogs per cage. It's all about money. it reminds me of the stock market. They buy the puppies low and they sell them high. Puppy World and Puppy Land, their sister store, they're selling them for thousands of dollars. So these stores are banned in California, so these stores are coming up here to try to sell their puppy mill puppies. And like I said, unfortunately, one of them sprung up in Olympia. However, they were quick to act and they fast-tracked it. And now, fortunately, it has passed. And the store has about 6 months grace period before they stop. So there's documentation that shows that Puppy World and Puppy Land get their puppies from Jack's, which is JAKS, Puppies Inc. And like I said, they're a puppy broker in Iowa. And they're currently being sued by their own state of Iowa as well as California. They opened up a fake rescue so they can infiltrate their puppies into California. And Jack's receives puppies from hundreds of puppy mills. One of them has 700 breeding dogs. So we're not talking about a reputable breeder that's that takes good care of their animals, that loves their dogs, and that cares about the breed. We're talking about people that put profit over the health and well-being of these dogs. So myself and other Thurston County residents and some Pierce County residents have been having weekly peaceful protests around this store. And we've been getting a lot of honks of support. And like I said, I volunteer at the shelter, and there's many, many dogs that are available for adoption. And so just really encourage you to support this ordinance. And if you have any questions, please ask me or bailing out Benji, Ashley Daly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is Donna Snow.
Good evening. My name is Donna Snow. I'm a resident of Olympia. I'm sorry, Lacey. I moved here. Oh. Lacey.
Even better.
So I guess I would just like to say, Michelle, I think, gave you a good background on the situation with the ordinance that Olympia recently passed. And we were so grateful for their support of it. They did put it on the fast track to get the ordinance customized for the city of Olympia, and it was kind of compiled from some other similar ordinances that would make it stand up in the court system if there were lawsuits or anything like that. And so I would encourage you to review their ordinance and maybe talk with the council members. It passed unanimously. And it would be very little work on the part of the city of Lacey, because basically Olympia's done all the work and got it in place. And so I would just like to encourage you to put this on your agenda soon, to see about getting a similar ordinance in Lacey, because it could be very easy for this store to just pick up and move to a neighboring town here in Thurston County. So if you have any questions, I'm sure the council members in Olympia would be happy to take your questions. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anyone else that would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we're going to now move on to the 2019 Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan update.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. It's my first opportunity to have the pleasure to address you, so thank you. Before you, you see the 2019 Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan update, obviously very, very important in light of what's going on. This plan, as you see, is sort of what I would call a housekeeping item. We are in the process of hiring an emergency management safety coordinator who will be continuing to update this plan. But in the interim, as if you had a chance to read over all the fine details, there are a few things that need to be updated, but we are requesting that this plan be approved this evening. It was actually approved by the state in 2018. And as you recall, I came here in 2019 in June, and we recently found this out that it had been approved. So having said that, it will continue to be updated, but what it does provide for is it provides for the ability for the city to mobilize resources as needed to address appropriately the emergencies. So that is what we're requesting with this plan. And again, the intent is to continue to keep this updated so that when it comes forward the next time, it will be up to date.
I would move to approve resolution adopting the 2019 Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan and authorize the mayor to sign the letter of promulgation. Promulgation.
Second.
I just can't say that word.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? So seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is ordinances. 2019 Encumbrance Carryover Budget Amendment Ordinance. Troy.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Pratt. Good evening, Council. The ordinance for your consideration relates to the first of two annual budget amendments we'll look at this year. This amendment is limited to budget appropriations that were included in 2019 but were not completed, and we'd like to complete those for the Council, so we're asking you that you reappropriate these funds into the 2020 budget. Again, this is a limited type of budget amendment. This is limited to capital projects that were included in the 2019 budget, as well as minor equipment or supply purchases over $2,500. You do have the full details of the proposed amendment that are in Exhibit A. I would like to highlight a few of the major requests because they are council priorities. There's $2.5 million for veteran services. These are improvements to the building at the community college site. There's $400,000 for affordable housing as well as homelessness issues. There's $675,000 for economic development. This relates to the agreement with the Port of Olympia as well as potential Woodland Square improvements. And finally, there's $300,000 included for the master plan for Cuyo Park. So again, there's some major priorities within this proposed amendment. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and of course, the recommendation is you adopt the ordinance.
I would move to adopt the proposed ordinance amending the 2020 budget.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? I have one very brief one, mainly just to see what this means. I'm not questioning the motion, but it says total wastewater utility fund revenues, and this is under 402-3501-535-6001, and then it says capital outlays equipment, but when over in comments is planning design for office space. I'm curious what office space means when it's equipment and outlays.
It's really just a capital account, but this is kind of the initial design to look at the workspace and workflow for the shop offices. This is a situation where we're beginning to outgrow the facility, so it's really to look at that. It's in anticipation of a future project.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all the question I had. So there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Yeah,
Aye.
Scott. I'm not Scott. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time today.
Okay. It's fine. I was just going to add that the Finance Committee looked at this just recently, and keep in mind that everything on here is carryover from 2019. So all of this has been approved in our prior budget, just work that didn't get done in 19 that's getting moved forward to 2020.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Thank you. So the B&O Tax Update Ordinance. Troy again.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. For your consideration is an ordinance relating to the Lacey Municipal Code of the B&O tax section. This really amounts to a housekeeping change. So back in December of last year, you adopted an ordinance that incorporated the B&O Tax Model Ordinance, which is required by state law. And as a reminder, these changes related to a collaboration between Washington businesses and local government in terms of simplifying the tax code. So you, of course, did that. But what we discovered upon final review is we had a duplicate section relating to B&O tax apportionment. This is related to service industries for B&O tax. So we adopted a new section of 3.02.077, but we did not repeal section 3.02080, which relates to the same topic. So we would like to repeal that. So the action requested of you is to adopt this ordinance, which will repeal section 3.02080.
I would move to adopt ordinance 1565, updating the business and occupation tax section of Lacey Municipal Code.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Stedman and seconded by Councilmember Greenstein. So is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so city manager's report, the award of Meridian water improvements. And that's Scott's.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, good
Or
evening,
Lacey's labeled
Honorable
at that.
Deputy Mayor and Council. So tonight, staff is recommending award of Lacey contract number PW 2020-07 to low bidder Reed Trucking and Excavating from Puyallup, Washington, in the amount of $350,058.12. That's for the Meridian water main improvements. So the purpose of this project is to improve, obviously, transmission flow. There's about 1,700 feet of 12-inch pipe in the project, and then an assortment of valves ranging from 12-inch down to 6-inch. The project, there's a map in your packet, shows it's on Meridian, and it runs from 31st at Campus Park Drive. So that 1,700 feet is about a quarter mile. We need to get this done in advance of the overlay project that's going to occur on Meridian Road, which will run from 31st Avenue up to 46, which is about a mile and a quarter. And that overlay project will be paid for by the Transportation Benefit District funds. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Move to award Lacey contract number PW 2020-07 to low bidder Reed Trucking and Excavating from Puyallup, Washington, in the amount of $350,058.12.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Stedman.
I had a couple questions. Does this have to happen before the improvements on Meridian and the roundabout on Meridian Road?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured. And then it looked like one of the 12 bidders, it was middle of the road bidder, got rejected. Was there a major reason for that? I'm sure.
You know, I didn't check on that. They were, had one of the higher bids, so.
It was right in the middle, so
Right.
I mean, it wasn't low bidder, wasn't the highest bidder.
Right.
Just kind of a question that came to mind. So.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Will this road have to be closed for any period of time?
There'll be some temporary closures, but, they'll notify in advance and provide detour. But they will, run traffic through the work site as much as possible.
Do you know what the timeline is for this project?
There's 30 working days.
30 days.
And they're expected to start in May.
Thank you.
Is there any additional questions?
Say hopefully they hit a good patch of weather and could, be ahead of schedule even.
It's going to be a beautiful summer.
That's right. I like it, Scott.
That's part of the bid, right? So with that, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
And we are now at standing general committees. The Finance and Economic Committee, I believe you gave that. Go ahead.
Yeah, in the mayor's absence, I sat in as chair for that meeting. There were 4 items on the agenda. 2 of them we've already covered tonight, so I won't talk about them. That would be the 2019 Encumbrance Carryover and the B&O Tax Code Update both of those have already been covered. The other two items were the 2020 budget amendment update. This is an update the Finance Committee gets, I think, quarterly or twice, 2 or 4 times a year.
It's as needed. Yeah.
As needed, okay. These are things that we're seeing that are going to have to be changed in the budget. The budget's always a working document. You know, it's really good on January 1, and after that, it's anybody's guess. But those things will come back before this council at a later date for action. And then the fourth thing was the 2020 property tax report. We had $250.9 million in new construction valuation this year, and our overall assessed valuation increase was 9.97%. So significant new construction, which of course adds to the revenue on our property taxes. And that is my report.
Thank you. Next up is General Government and Public Safety, and I'm the chair of that committee. So we had a couple information items. One is the Community Development Block Grant timeline. Basically, this up for the last 3 years, we've had the CDBG program was among Lacey, Tumwater, and Thurston County, and it included South County communities. The funding round, we're in the third round of the fundings of the third year. So the schedule is starts February 21st was request for proposals published. I'm not going to go through every single date, but then April 3rd is when the applications are due. They'll be giving a presentation to the council April 23rd. The May 21st, the City Council work session will select proposals, and then there's an approval of proposals by HUD, and it'll occur early in September, and contracts are signed in early October. And the committee actually directed staff to research the city's options to receive CDBG funding directly from HUD and report back to the committee, because otherwise we wait every 3 years to utilize our CDBG funds. And the next up was a cable franchise update. And in December 2019, Council approved an extension of the cable television franchise with Comcast until May 2020. And negotiations are continuing with Comcast and should be finished in May. And they talked about some rule restricting local government cable franchise fees. And that's my report. And let's see. Utilities Committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Myself, Councilmember Kunkel, and Miller were present on March 2nd at the noon hour. 2-item agenda was Stormwater Comprehensive Plan. The purpose of the Lacey Stormwater Comprehensive Plan was to create a multi-year plan to guide the programs, activities, and projects of the Lacey Stormwater Surface Water Utility. The driving factors behind it is a municipal water stormwater permit, and as well as updates for the utility financial analysis and capital improvement projects. The staff target date for this is middle of summer 2020, and they'll provide updates from between now and then to us as needed and before it's presented to full council for adoption. And then second item on the agenda was the Nisqually flood utility response. If everybody remembers, about a month and a half ago, I believe it was, Nisqually Reach had a pretty substantial flood, and the county was advising residents to boil water. Staff highlighted that steps were taken to protect drinking water for the city of Lacey residents, and clarified there was no need to boil the water and that our water was not compromised in any way.
Oh, well, that's good.
And that is my report.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that, we're moving on to boards, commissions, and committee reports. The mayor isn't here, so we'll skip down to my report. And Joint Animal Services Commission has already been reported on for this month. And I believe Councilmember Cox covered me for both Lot Clean Water Alliance and the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency since I was in Washington, D.C. So thank you. Would you report out?
You're welcome. So both of these agencies met yesterday. Lot met last night and conducted both a study session and a short business meeting, so it was a double header. The purpose of the study session was to interview representatives of 3 consultants that are competing for a contract to lead the agency's cost of service project. What this project is examining the agency's rate structure with an eye toward equity. And they know that the current rate structure, which kind of has flat fees, actually has residential customers subsidizing commercial users. So the board has generally agreed that they want to find a revenue neutral way, that means without raising everybody's rates, to correct that without imposing a large financial burden on commercial users. So afterward, the board discussed the 3 presentations we heard, and we ranked the 3. The staff is going to contact the consultants and look at their whole package and see how well it meets up with our recommendations and have a proposal ready for the board next month. The business meeting was pretty routine. We received a briefing on a construction project that is designed to improve the biological processes in sewage treatment. It involves a lot of aeration and mixing and all kinds of things. Excuse me, I just lost my note. Okay. The project design should wrap up in April, and the agency will go out for bids after that. It's going to include a new electrical and mechanical building, and they are already working with the Port of Olympia to lease some adjacent land for construction staging, and this will actually help those of us driving through on Marine Drive by limiting the times that the road has to be closed in order for giant pieces of equipment to be moved in for the construction project. They're going to do this in 3 phases, and the construction is supposed to start in November and wrap up by May 2023. Cost estimates range from $23.4 million to $27.1 million, so this is not a minor undertaking. Also, we learned that demolition is complete on the agency's Washington Street property where they removed a contaminated building. They're going to pave over both the existing bare lot as well as what remains of the concrete pad because there's contaminants there, and that'll help seal it in so it doesn't escape through dust. And they're going to use that for parking and construction staging for now, and eventually they plan to use it for expanding treatment facilities. So that is the lot report.
So one of the things about many of these projects is they're costly, but they build in energy efficiency into them, and so in the long term, they're saving ratepayers money because it's not as costly to keep the facility going. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, they did indicate they expect 27 to 28% savings in energy, and that their electric bills are about 1.2 million a year, I think.
Yeah.
I was trying not to get too far down in the weeds with this report, but that's a good point there. All righty. The Olympic Region Clean Air Agency met yesterday morning. It was a very routine meeting with the exception of discussion on the COVID-19 virus. Frances McNair, the director, briefed the board about safety precautions she is taking, such as very similar to what we're doing here in Lacey with frequently wiping down hard surfaces that people are likely to touch, with sanitizers that have been approved by health authorities as being effective for disabling the virus. The staff is going to meet on Monday to plan how they're going to keep the agency's functions going. They're looking at things like perhaps having compliance staff that has to go out and respond to emergency. Go ahead and take agency vehicles home with them at night so they're ready to roll. They don't have to try to come into a shuttered building and get keys and that sort of thing. Director McNair also indicated that the agency has an office in Pacific County that could be a resource if Thurston County operations have to shut down. So, let's see, one more note on that is the board discussed the option of having remote meetings, either by phone or teleconference, but no decision was made on that.
Okay.
And otherwise, it's, February was a good air month, we learned. The agency has a 2-year grant they're managing for wood stove education, and they've got pots of money from that for each of the counties. Thurston's money is pretty well spent down, and so what they are proposing to do, not to short the other counties, but put the money all in one pot and then continue spending down, because they have to spend it before they can apply for more grant money to continue this education project,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And then we received a brief report on improvements to the agency's website. Visitors now can view information about asbestos removal projects, and they can also look at important notice of violation cases that date back for 20 years. So if you want to find some dirt, you're probably going to find it there. They would actually ask us to link to their webpage if we have not already done that. I took a quick cruise on the website today and I didn't see it, but
Was it the Zoom thingy? Zoom.
no, the Orca webpage.
I thought that was what they told me to link up to, but Zoom.
I thought Zoom was a program.
Well, it might be, but I thought that was what they thought the council had to switch to or something. But I've looked on their website multiple times, but I thought everything was going to be put on Zoom, but I don't know that, so.
Okay, well, I was your pinch hitter, so that's what I know. And I don't think there's any decisions. I just think they think as a member agency of Orca that it would be nice if we had a link from
Our page to theirs?
our page to theirs,
Yes.
so that people could get there quickly.
Do we have that? I
All
thought
right,
we
and
did.
you want me to roll into my regular reports?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so but now it's all of yours.
Okay. Real quick on the Regional Housing Council, we're scheduled to meet next Thursday, the 19th. The Health and Human Services Council met on March the 9th, and we received an update on an interlocal agreement that's being developed that would combine the Health and Human Services Council and the recently formed Regional Housing Council into one group. The Health and Human Services Council primarily manages an annual grants program where we grant local tax dollars to social services agencies that provide emergency needs. And then we also evaluate applications for larger funding. This tends to be state and federal dollars that we recommend to county commissioners which projects should be funded, and then they get the final say on that. And although the membership of the two councils is nearly identical, there are some concerns expressed that we talked about combining these groups. One of these concerns the participation or lack of same by South County cities, and also the workload for staff members. Right now, the county is kind of double dutying with some help from our staff on providing administrative support for both of these groups. Basically ours is just, I don't think we're charging anything, and I don't think the county is charging us any more for what they're doing, but it's kind of hard on them having to double up. Let's see. And the other thing is we want to make sure that important elements don't fall through the cracks, because the Regional Housing Council's focus is more on affordable housing and addressing homelessness. And so they're complementary, but we just want to make sure that this is well done if we do combine the two groups. We also heard updates on the current grant cycle and how the grants we awarded last spring are being utilized. We are now at the point of about to receive proposals for the 2020-21 funding cycle, and those will be scored and ranked by May in time for approval in June. And then we heard a presentation from Carrie Retland, who's the manager of Olympia's Home Fund, about where that program stands. And the current large project that they're supporting now is a new shelter that will begin construction later this year at 2828 Martin Way. This will be a 60-bed, 24-hour homeless shelter, and then another 4 or 5 stories above that will provide apartment units for permanent supportive housing. Interfaith Works will manage the shelter and provide services to residents of the apartments, and the building itself will be owned and managed by the Low Income Housing Institute. We also received a brief overview of a program that United Way has. They've put together what's known as the Education to Financial Stability Task Force. Not sure we've heard much about that before, but this was launched last August with the goal of delivering innovative post-secondary education. So they're working on a legislative and policy agenda to advocate for changes that will better position kids coming out of high school to train for jobs that are going to improve their self-sufficiency and financial stability. So right now, they are not asking for municipal service on that commission, but it's just good to know about their work. And then Intercity Transit met on March 4th, and there was a little COVID-19 news about that too. They've placed information on their webpage, and it focuses a lot on personal preventive measures and other official sources of information that you can get to. As of last Wednesday's meeting, they said they have not seen a drop in ridership because of the scare. That may be changing as people are either not going to work or trying to isolate themselves for their protection. If they do have to make service-related changes, and they are making preparations, just like we're doing our emergency preparations, that will be broadly publicized through the website and social media and the newspapers and everything else. They don't want to make cuts, but let's say half their drivers are sick with this thing. They're going to have to do something to do that. So before all the coronavirus scare came up, the news on the zero fare ridership was actually pretty good. For February, they decided not to use the 2019 for comparison on ridership numbers because of the Snowmageddon event where there weren't nearly as many people out on the buses. So if you compare to 2018, ridership from this February is up 27.1%. And just for fun, if you looked at last February, it's up 39.3%. So
Wow.
I'd say probably a ballpark of 30%. And in January, it was up 20% over the prior year. So it seems to be having its intended effects. And lastly, watch for the new bus schedule that's going to be having March 22nd service changes coming out, including the new Route 65 through Northeast Lacey. So that should be hitting the streets just any day now. And something I'd like for council to consider at a future work session is a request from Intercity Transit that They are wanting to work with local and state jurisdictions about what's known as construction mitigation dollars for transit. For example, the 2-year Mullen Road construction project that is starting to get underway, Intercity Transit estimates it's costing them $650,000 in having, loss of time on the route, as well as having to drive further to avoid the construction, lengthening the route. So I think they would like to have a conversation with us about that. And I think it's something that can probably be built into a project that's not.
That would be worthy of discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I don't know how far they'll get, but I wanted to at least let you know that they're thinking that way, because there are impacts definitely on transit when we do have construction projects. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Greenstein.
I will report out on my committees at our next meeting, so I have no report this evening.
Okay. Councilmember Miller.
I am reporting on the Thurston Regional Planning Committee meeting that I went to on March 6th. We got together and we initially discussed creating a couple subcommittees. One of those failed. I believe it failed. There was to be a subcommittee in regards to education and how the Planning Commission can help in education in ways that maybe teachers and staff cannot. We had some representatives from the school district who didn't think that was a good idea, as the schools have enough committees already, apparently. And so I'm not sure if that is going to develop, but another subcommittee that was discussed was a housing subcommittee. And one of the reasons for that is, as a county, we are severely low on housing. Most counties have 1,500 houses for sale at any given time. We have about 250. So our supply is very short, which means that, for all the people that want to come live in our community, we have to turn them away, most of them, which is unfortunate because, our taxes could be spread out over a wider base. And unfortunately, they are not, because we have not made enough room for those people to come and buy houses here in Thurston County. So the TRPC feels like maybe there's something we can do. I have been nominated to be on that committee, as well as Councilmember Cox and Port Commissioner Joe Downing and Clark Gilman. And so we will be picking up that effort hopefully very soon. And maybe there is something that we can do to expand our reach a little bit, and maybe we can have the people that would like to live here would be able to buy homes here, and we can use those dollars that wouldn't normally be here and bounce around our community. That would be great, because we could really use that extra. We also did discuss the stream flow restoration and the different the water availability and stream flow restoration, which is required of us by RCW 90.94. So the update there is that we have several watershed groups, and in those watershed groups there's requirements that are required of us by the state. We have statutory deadlines that are due coming up very soon, and we got to take a look at some of the water infiltration systems that have been placed. There was one that we looked at on an image, and I think it's in the Rochester area, but what a great design it was, and the infiltration that it's having into placing water back into our aquifers apparently is really good. There are a couple others that are designed and planned, but not yet in place. And so we got an update on those. Another agenda item that we had was the Capitol Campus Travel Demand Management Project update. And so the Capitol area is pretty congested during most of the day. And one of the ideas that the governor thought was, well, maybe we can do, telecommuting Tuesdays and things like this. Well, at the time, the virus outbreak that we're talking about, the corona, wasn't as serious as it is, and this has just only been since last Friday. So a lot has happened since then, between then and now, and I don't think that telecommuting is a question at this point. It's almost becoming mandatory since that time. And so let's see, the telecommuting Tuesday, I think everybody kind of got behind that and decided that that was a good thing, but now that's even up to multiple days. Another agenda item that we had was the regional transportation plan, and a lot of time, effort, energy, and resources are spent on how are we going to make our section of I-5 more efficient. And during the studies that are being done, I think are rather costly, but absolutely necessary. And what they have shown is that the best option for us is to widen I-5 as a whole, which is obviously very costly. Extra lane at Nisqually Interchange, some roundabouts on 507 in the Yelm area. A high occupancy vehicle lane is another idea that's on the table, even though a lot of the council didn't really like that, because it appears as if when you put a high occupancy vehicle lane in place, there eventually someone might want to come along and try to monetize that. And we've seen that in other parts of the state as budgets have changed for different for transit and for traffic, in that, we've all decided that we wanted to kind of have a break on our tabs and these kinds of things. So high occupancy vehicle lane, it's still on the table. Interchange improvements, like braided ramps at 101 and I-5. The results suggest that part-time shoulder use, interchange improvements, sustainable Thurston land use, meaning the areas around the I-5 corridor that we're using, are we using them in a sustainable way? The cost for the roundabouts and the long-term planning, the implementation, transportation demand, the part-time shoulder use, the Pacific Avenue interchange. One of the things I guess I was happy about is that a lot of these things need to happen in the Lacey area, which is great. We won't have to pay for them, but the state as a whole will, with grant money, of course. But the total cost came out to $195 million for all of for the few things that we thought would work. And so I thought that was a pretty good budget size there. And another agenda item that we went over was the 2020 legislative session as it comes to an end. We went over whole packets full of measures, and I can't go into all of them with you. And the ones that really affected us as a county, I gave in my last report. My other committees that I am here to report on would be Thurston Thrives. I gave a report on that after our last meeting, and our next meeting, unfortunately, has been canceled. So we won't have a report to give on that next month. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee will not be meeting until the 27th of this month. and I'll have a report to give after that meeting. We did not have a meeting last month. The Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking was to meet tonight, but unfortunately canceled their meeting.
Okay,
And that is my report.
thank you. So, Councilmember Stedman.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one report. It's the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. They met on March the 4th at 10 a.m. at the Public Works Facility off of Tilley Road. Notable agenda items were the bylaws, meeting, the work plan, the year's work plan, and the capital projects. So bylaw reviews is just nothing major. We're just going through each section of the bylaws, making really minute changes, and hope to get through it by year's end. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee's work plan. April is we reviewed it, the bylaws in March, and we're going through it in April and a couple other months down the road. But the one thing that stood out to me was the solid waste management plan retreat. And I'm going to back up a little bit because the RFP is currently in process, and they're looking to go out for bid process for the RFP. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense until after we've reviewed the solid waste management plan, because that's ultimately, it's kind of the cart in front of the horse. You don't really know what you're doing until you actually have your plan in place and it's updated and talked. And the retreat doesn't really happen. It's not happening until June. So it makes most sense to go out for RFP once you completed that in June. That's really the only thing that raised concern for me and to address on my report. Other than that, give me a second here. I'll switch over to capital projects. Notable things happening there. The capital facilities projects currently going through the SCADA system, which is the supervisory control and data acquisition system. The current one's failing. We've been working on the design and looking to go out for bid in July, and hopefully the project will be complete in September. At the same time, the flare system at the work as well, same time frame. They've been doing the planning all the way through. It'll go out to bid sometime in July as well, and hopefully close out the project in September. Those projects are $500,000 for the SCADA system and $1.3 million for the flare system. And other notable projects for 2020 are the Rainier and Rochester drop box renovations. Those are $1.9 million each. Other than that, the only other thing is that's super major price tag is the pump system upgrade for the landfill at the work. And that is my report.
Thank you. So we're at the end of our council meeting, and we'll be adjourning to our work session right afterwards to discuss the Department of Commerce grant and an update to the COVID-19 emergency. At this time, it is 7:54. I'm going to adjourn. Keep it classy, Lacey. There we are.